You're listening to the Save the Date podcast, where we talk all things weddings, jewellery and romance, with love from Cullen Jewellery.
Also, if you're buying a dress and you think it's $3,000, it could end up being closer to $4,000.
Yes, 100%, yeah. For like alterations, easily $500 to $1,000 depending on what you need, if not more. But something that I would do with your alterations, the place that you get your wedding dress, they'll always give you a recommendation. They're probably not the cheapest, and they also might not be the best. They're just someone that is kind of working in conjunction with the bridal store. So do your own research, look around, ask on Facebook or any other brides that you know that have gotten married recently. They'll probably have a really good recommendation for someone, maybe a bit more local, that, does just as good of a job, but you might be able to get it a bit cheaper.
Yeah, that's actually a good tip.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to go with the same boutique that you bought your dress from because, obviously they will have their own kind of, seamstress that works with them regularly.
Yeah.
But that's a very good tip. Okay, so moving on, still within the wedding prep realm, we have beauty treatment, which I know it's definitely personal preference, how much and what do you want to get done in preparation for your wedding. I know I would say probably the most common things are like maybe facials as well as potentially some teeth whitening. I know they are the two that come to mind when, I'm thinking about beauty treatments. It doesn't have to be anything absurd or crazy, but again, very expensive.
Yeah.
Especially for facials. And I mean, teeth whitening, that's probably just like more of a one-off. But facials, that's like every couple of weeks. Like people want to, or they recommend you, starting 6 months out. Yeah. So they can get your skin right. And that's, quite a few hundred, or could be quite a few hundred a month leading up to the wedding, which adds up quite a lot.
Yeah. It's not something I actually expected or even thought about, like facials or anything. It wasn't until I went and had my trial with my makeup artist that she recommended it. And then I was only a month and a half, I think, out from the wedding, trying to catch up on 6 months worth of skin treatments.
And was it a normal skin treatment or was it a bridal prep?
No,
skin
I
have seen them on a menu at a facial. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. No.
As a service,
No, I just got like a very basic, I think it's a microdermabrasion.
Oh, yes.
Like hydrating, just so that my skin was the best for the makeup on the day.
Yeah.
And it definitely did help. I noticed a big difference in my skin like that month compared to how it was previously. But in saying that, it still wasn't 100% necessary.
Yeah.
You could definitely still save and not do that.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, definitely a personal preference expense, but something to keep in mind if you are interested in doing some skin prep or some beauty prep leading up. Oh, and nails as well.
Yeah, nails,
Like
eyebrows, lashes.
I forgot about all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All the little things.
If you get like filler normally,
yeah.
like you might want to get a top up before the wedding.
All the little things, and individually they're not too bad, but add them up.
Add them up over the course of like 2 weeks.
Add them up, really. Maybe it's better not to add them up. Okay, moving on to our next topic for unexpected expenses. We've got vendors. So one of the main things that popped up when I was looking into this was travel fees.
Yes.
For vendors, which again isn't something necessarily included in the price when you're quoted. So
it's usually something that they'll add on after. So say, for example, you've got your hairstylist who's going to charge $150 for just your hair, and then they'll add on an additional travel fee of whatever it is per kilometre outside of a general radius. It's a little bit of a shock if you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
But it's just something that you kind of have to pay if you want that specific vendor. But your venue generally will have a list of vendors that they recommend that are local to the area. So you can always look through that and see if there's a vendor on there for a certain thing. And generally then they might not have travel fees because they're more local to the venue.
Yeah. I guess it's probably, more hair, makeup.
Yeah.
Perhaps a florist potentially.
Yeah.
But that would probably fit into one being maybe closer to the venue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the main ones are probably and photographer as well, or videographer.
Yeah.
Those, and makeup artists and hairstylists. I feel like those are kind of like the top ones that you may not, or you may want to pick your own and not necessarily be restricted to an area.
Yeah. Or even like entertainment. So if you're having like a band or an acoustic duo or anything like that, they might tack on the travel fees as well.
Yep. And it could be different for every vendor. So
yeah. It's not something that you can kind of guess for each vendor as you go. It's just going to be totally personal to them.
Mm-hmm. On that same thought, we've also got the delivery of.
Yes.
So instead of traveling or bringing your vendor to you, you've got the vendor bringing the stuff to you.
Yes.
So I guess your florist and potentially decorations fall under this umbrella, where you may have to have stuff delivered to the venue rather than a person. So again, another thing, like we just mentioned, not included in the original quote. And especially for flowers and stuff, I feel like they can get very expensive.
Yeah. Because flowers themselves.
Everything about flowers is expensive.
Yeah. Flowers for a wedding are just an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
But obviously if you've got a lot of flowers for your wedding, you kind of want them to be set up in the way that they're supposed to be, which your florist will do. Yeah. Hopefully that is included in the price. In the delivery cost is to have them set up. But yeah, it's one of those things that if you want them set up in that specific way, you probably
have to pay for it. So be prepared.
Yeah.
Also, another thing with, I guess, that kind of stems from that is DIY, which I know a lot of people do DIY a lot of things for their wedding because they're on a budget or they just want to save on certain things, which is obviously absolutely personal preference and a great way to save money. But I would just kind of keep in mind that some things that seem simple maybe aren't or could end up not being as simple as they seem. So really be careful and pick and choose what you want to DIY, because you may end up either it may end up costing you more, or it may end up costing you more time, depending on what it is. So just be very careful with DIY, because I guess that what you said about the flowers kind of sparked the thought of if you want the flowers set up in a certain way on the wedding day, the florist would hopefully, if they offer that service, will probably do it the best because they're experienced with that, rather than maybe leaving it to a family member.
Yeah.
You don't want to rock up on your wedding day and it's completely wrong.
Leaving it to your brother then.
Yes. So little things like that I would just kind of, keep in mind, which is probably, slightly different. It's not necessarily an unexpected cost that may arise, but if you're trying to maybe avoid an unexpected cost, this may come up. Yeah. Just, keep in mind that if it's going to stress you out or waste time, more of your time, which is valuable on the day, it could still be worth the extra money paying for that service.
I think it's just knowing your own limits. We did a lot of DIY, like all of our invites and signage and everything I did, but definitely it takes a lot of effort and it can be very overwhelming. I was doing our welcome sign like 2 days before the wedding and just absolutely going crazy over it, because it was like, oh my God, this is just so much effort and I'm so stressed out about the wedding, but I've got to do this sign.
You need the sign.
So it can just be one of those things that adds a lot of extra stress that maybe spending that little bit of extra money would have alleviated, and you might feel better about it leading up to the wedding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, next on our list of unexpected costs, let's talk venues. Because venues can have quite a few extra little things that I feel like maybe are even more hidden costs that people like, even more so than what we just discussed. Okay, so first up, which I actually learned something new. I did not even know this was a thing, but Sheridan Was this actually at your wedding that you said you had to cater for the staff members?
Not at the venue we went with, but there was a couple of venues that we looked at that had in their contracts, I guess, that you had to pay for their staff meals.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. But okay, so this is why it's so confusing to me, or just so surprising to me that is a hidden cost with weddings, is because normal people go to work and bring their own lunch and dinner and food. So why are you paying for the staff meals? That's just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's not something I ever expected to be on the list of expenses.
I can understand the other vendors, like the photographer, and maybe if you bring your makeup artist for touch-ups or something like that, I understand, because they're holding equipment. It's not that easy for them to bring food with them.
Yeah.
But the staff meals at the venue, surely they've got a staff lunchroom or something and a fridge they can use.
And also, if it's like a venue that does food, they have a kitchen.
Sort yourself
surely they
out.
can just I'm sure it doesn't cost that much extra to get an extra chicken fillet.
Literally. So that surprised me, that one.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I didn't even know that. Okay, what else have we got under our venue costs? Let's see. Oh, menus.
Yeah.
And favours.
Yeah.
So favours as in the little, I guess, the gifts you put on the tables for all your guests, or the little party gifts, the party favour. Yeah, I guess party favours.
Party favour, yeah. Yeah, it kind of depends. I feel like favours are becoming not as necessary as we kind of, I don't know. We didn't really do favours, and a lot of the time I feel like they just get thrown in the bin. Mm-hmm. It depends what they are. If they're sentimental or mean anything to the couple, that then can be used, I guess, by the guests. Mm. But there's some things that I just think are a bit unnecessary.
Not needed.
That's definitely
well, you
a
were saying,
personal opinion.
You were saying you also doubled it up with the table setting or the name tags
Yeah,
or something?
so we had, and then they also could have it either, while they were sitting waiting for us to come out, or take it home with them. And they were just it's just something really small that I'm sure if, your uncle doesn't like it, your auntie does. So
yes, that's true.
Someone will eat it, or they'll give it to the grandkids, or.
That's very true. Yeah, see, I like that idea. And I like that you combined the two. Yeah. And made it into one thing, because that's all those little kind of things for the venue. Mm-hmm. Again, a bit of a add up cost. So if you're doing separate name cards for the seating, you have to get them made up, or you could also DIY potentially. But then the little favors, you got to get them made up or DIY them, and then menus as well, which was another one. Yeah, because do you go through the venue to get your menus, or is that completely separate? Did you do?
No, it would be separate. So you just need to obviously make sure you know what the menu is. Yeah. And then get them made or DIY them. Mm-hmm. Generally, the places that do invitations and your signage and all of that sort of thing will also have an option for menus.
Yeah. Which probably a bigger cost if you've got a larger wedding.
Yes.
If you've got a lot of people coming, that's obviously going to be a lot more of a bigger cost. Mm-hmm. But smaller weddings, I suppose.
It depends as well how you want your table set up. Yeah. So obviously some people will have a big stack of things on each plate that has, their name, their favour, their menu, their nicely folded napkin and everything. Or you might have one menu per 5 people, or one menu per table if you're having round tables or something like that. So that's another thing you can kind of think about is, do you actually really need everybody to have their own menu, or could you just have it on the table for people to look at if they want to?
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good tip if you want to cut down on those kind of costs that you don't necessarily need everyone to have their own menu. Yeah. Now, cake cutting and corkage, again, an extra charge that the venue may slap on. Yeah, I just feel again, it's not something you would necessarily think about, but it's very common that they will charge you extra to cut up and serve the wedding cake, as well as potentially, I think corkage is more of a thing if you're bringing your own drinks, potentially, if they don't supply the alcohol or the other drinks you've got. That's, I think, potentially when they charge more for corkage, not necessarily if the venue has its own bar.
Yeah. To be honest, when I was looking at venues, it wasn't something that came up that much, but we were looking at inclusive venues that had all of the like alcohol and food there included. So yeah, it wasn't something that came up, but definitely I can imagine it being something if you bring your own
which is
drinks.
That's probably something you want to be asking as well, if it's all inclusive, and just be really clear when you're asking venues what's included, because sometimes as well, like they might quote you per head, but that's not inclusive of tax and the service fee on top. So definitely when you're looking at venues, they're definitely the types of questions you want to answer, because again, it's those little hidden costs that they might be quoting you $100 per head, but then it's like, oh no, but it's an extra 20% for tax and an extra 20% on top of that for service fees.
Yeah.
So you just want to be really clear when you're shopping around.
Yeah. Ask as many questions as you can. Like even go in with like a list of questions that you just want to get ticked off, because you'd rather be like a little bit annoying, and I'm sure they wouldn't actually find you annoying. And if they do,
do you want to go there?
Do you really want to go there? I don't know. But yeah, just ask as many questions as you can, because you really want to know all of those little nitty-gritty details before signing the dotted line.
Absolutely. Okay, now moving on to some more generalized costs that may pop up. So we've got bridal party gifts, which I suppose again is personal preference if you wanted to do them or not. But it is something that, again, you may not necessarily think about initially, or even if your bridal party needs anything on the day of your wedding. Like if you wanted your bridal party to be in the exact same lipstick, or if you wanted them to wear, like for photos, get some cute robes. I mean, I personally wouldn't expect, for the little things like that, I wouldn't expect my bridesmaids to be paying for that themselves. But that's my personal preference.
Yeah.
I know some people do get their bridesmaids or groomsmen to pay their own way for little things like that. But I guess it's something you kind of want to decide first up. Yeah. I guess before you start asking.
Yeah. Even just in general, anything to do with your bridal party, like their dresses or their suits, are you paying for them? Are they paying for them? And just, go into it, be really open about how much you actually are willing to spend.
Yes, or and even asking them how much they're willing to spend if you are going to get them to cover the cost. Yeah, because obviously, different people have different financial situations. So, depending on which way you decide, I guess allowing for that as well. Yeah. And now, another thing that I came across when researching this is insurance for your wedding day, which I feel like not heaps of people do this, but I have heard of quite a few people getting insurance for their wedding day, which I guess makes sense, because if you're paying so much for everything and then an unforeseen circumstance pops up where you cannot make it on the day, a lot of venues, a lot of vendors and stuff will take your deposit, and you'll have to forfeit that deposit and then reschedule. So I guess, that's another personal preference or personal decision that you have to make. That could be another cost that comes up. Do you want to have cover for your wedding day?
Yeah. And as well, depending on the circumstances, so your venue should have their own insurance for, I don't know, say there's a fire or any of those sorts of things that might happen, or weather related or hurricanes, anything like that. Your venue should have insurance themselves. But just think about how much you want to be covered yourself outside of your other vendors and your venue and everything.
Yeah, because I mean, the most recent example we have that really rocked the wedding industry was the pandemic and lockdown and stuff, which obviously that was out of everyone's hands. But I suppose if it's more, I guess it's covering you for stuff that's more on a personal level. Like maybe, God forbid, there was a death in the family and you couldn't do your wedding day anymore, I feel like it really covers you for that type of stuff because, obviously, like you said, like if the venue burned down, you've got that should be included in your venue to cover that sort of stuff. But, more on a personal level, it's, I guess, up to you if you want to be covered for, personal issues or problems that may come up.
Yeah.
All right. Now we've got one more unexpected cost for post-wedding. We've got dry cleaning your wedding dress.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking at Sheridan because she admitted to me she still has not done it.
I have not dry cleaned my dress, and it has been April, May, June, July, August, 5 months since the wedding, and no, my dress has not been dry cleaned. It is in the bag in the cupboard.
So another personal preference
Another
cost.
personal preference. Like, it just, for me personally, I just can't see the need to spend a few $100s getting a dress dry cleaned that I know I won't wear again.
Yeah.
It's a bit different if you're going to preserve your dress in some way, like if you're going to get it boxed in one of those frame boxes, then obviously you want it to look clean and beautiful for that to be on display. But just think about if you really need it to be done, how dirty is it?
Because that was the other thing. Like, they're actually quite expensive to dry clean wedding dresses. Because I feel like normal clothing isn't too bad. Like, if you go dry clean a blazer, it's no more than $30, $40.
Yeah.
Whereas, something like a wedding dress can cost a few $100 to dry clean.
Yeah.
So you have to really weigh up whether you personally want to or not, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to also sell the dress, it needs to be cleaned.
Yes.
But then you'll not make some money, you'll probably still lose money on what you spend overall, but at least you'll get something back. But just think about, do you really need to get it done? Is it just going to sit in a box? Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Now, after going through everything, we thought we'd finish off with some helpful tips in general to avoid situations where you might incur unexpected costs. So the first biggest tip we have is, which kind of goes across the board for everything, is build an emergency fund into your wedding budget. So this, we believe it at least 5%, just so you are covered if anything does pop up in regards to your wedding.
Yeah.
And it just gives you some wiggle room that if something pops up and it needs to be paid for.
Yeah, 100%. Like, at least then, kind of like we said at the start, if you're not super happy with your makeup artist and now you've got to find a new one and spend that extra money, you've just got that little bit of extra in your budget that it's not going to be a huge deal to have to pull from it. And kind of on that note as well, I think just keep saving money. Don't just get to your dedicated budget with your 5% extra and then go, okay, well, that's everything for the wedding. That's enough. We can go and just spend whatever we want now. Keep saving, because even if you have leftover at the end, you can spend it on your honeymoon or buy yourselves a gift or literally anything else. But at least then you're not going to end up with nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You can always, it's better to have leftover money than to be really, really stressed about paying for things on your wedding. So that's a good tip. Okay, our next one is get everything in writing. So when you're approaching your venue, when you're approaching all the vendors, in the contracts you signing, make sure everything is in there and very super clear before, like I think you said earlier, before you sign that dotted line, make sure everything is absolutely final and settled. Like, discuss that with them to make sure there isn't going to be an extra cost of some sort of service fee or tax that they haven't included, and be very, very clear and ask questions about that. Yeah.
Make sure you read through your contract line by line, and then even get someone else to read through it just in case you've missed anything. And if you do have any questions, just ask, because you'd much rather ask them now if there's something that you don't understand on your contract or something that you're unsure of. Ask the question. They should be more than happy to answer you so that they can clear it up. At the end of the day, they want your business as well. So they want to make sure that they're answering everything for you to the best of their ability so that they can get your business.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, especially with the asking of questions, I feel like that's also quite important for your makeup artist and hairstylist, because I feel like with vendors like that, you don't necessarily always sign a contract or something.
Yeah.
It's more like the venues and the bigger expense items that's where a contract is, written out. Whereas with, the smaller places or the smaller people you're working with, you don't always have a contract and you don't always have stuff in writing. So even if it's just in an email where you have listed everything out and you have them responding and agreeing to that, like at least that's written proof of a price you originally agreed to.
Yeah.
And you can go back and have those receipts if anything comes up, and you can be really, if something absurd comes up, you can literally go back and be like, look, you never mentioned this. I'm not paying that. Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Just get everything in writing, even if it's not a specific contract that they've sent to you. Mm-hmm. Just sneaky, get them to say yes to something.
Screenshots.
One more quick thing, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit with the dress alterations, but with all of your vendors, remember that the industry is pretty saturated. There's always different vendors that might be cheaper and just as good quality. So unless you have your absolute heart set on a certain makeup artist or photographer, look around, have a look on Instagram, have a look on Facebook. There are so many really good quality vendors, people that will be just as good, but you might be able to get a better price.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, shop around.
Shop around.
Don't be ashamed or don't feel embarrassed to shop around, or know when to say no.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying no to a vendor if they've come back to you and they're a little bit too expensive.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they're the right person for you and you're the right person for them as well. You have to have a good vibe with all of your vendors. At the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them on a really special day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Save the Date podcast. We hope you learned something about weddings and all of the unexpected costs that might come with it, and got some sneaky tips along the way.
We'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.